Hi, everybody. I'm Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live, where you'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. And I ask you if you would to watch all the shows that we do here under Candid Frank Live's umbrella, to check out Candid Frank Stanisci's YouTube channel and check out what we're doing on there. And of course, I'm with Aaron William Freeland, the star of the show. Aaron, how you doing, buddy? It's a Friday.
Oh, thank goodness it's Friday. It's been one of those weeks, Frank?
Yeah, and we got a little extra snow again, and it was freezing rain last night. We went out partying last night. Friend has a band and they play music, and the counselor's husband's birthday, so we went there, and then I got embarrassed a little bit because I went there, and then they knew it was my birthday, so they piggybacked me on his party. I felt bad about that, and but it was fun. I got to say that being a senior in a town where seniors dominate, you don't feel out of place.
That's a good thing, for sure.
Yeah, it is. It is actually a good thing. It's a great thing, actually. I can relate to the people that are here, and it's a lot of fun. Let's talk about a team that we all care about, whether we support the team or not. We're all aware of it. If you live in Southern Ontario, and if you watch TV, and or if you know anyone that loves hockey, for the most part, you're going to run into people that are Leaf fans. So, they have an impact on how we do this program. You're an unabashed Leaf fan. I'm a Toronto fan, and by that I mean the city. I've explained that so many times. But I'm not afraid to support the Leaf team. I'm not looking to hate on them. Um, but I cut them no quarter, and also I'm not afraid to defend them when they deserve their defense. Well, it's time to defend the team as far as Matthews is concerned. He had a goal and an assist against the Blackhawks, Aaron. They were very mediocre without him.
No, it is true. Unlike in the past where they've had a lot of success without him, this time around, instead of being 12-3 and something, they were on the wrong end of the score more often than not. So I'm glad that he was back. I'm glad that he had a goal and an assist in his return. The fact that Nylander scored a goal in the first 15 seconds really didn't hurt their cause either.
Not at all.
But, that's one of those things. Now, it's interesting to note that Sam Lafferty, one of the players rumored to be a trade target for the Toronto Maple Leafs, also managed to score in that game. And Patrick Kane, another rumored trade target for the Toronto Maple Leafs, played horribly. So if that was an audition, I don't think Patty would have made it. So it's one of those interesting situations you find yourselves in where a potential trade partner shows up, but doesn't exactly live up to or down to expectations.
Moving along with your way of describing the situation using a showbiz term, I'll use one too and say, under that example of his play, he's not getting a recall, Aaron.
No. At this point, it doesn't look like Patrick Kane would be getting a call back.
Well, they what the Leafs would have to pay for a guy like that, which in my opinion they have plenty of on their lineup. They need some edge. They need somebody if they're going to give away the cupboard that's there for 2023 or 2024 as well. I would hope and think it should be somebody that offers something they don't have. And that bite is really important to me as a viewer, and having watched the Leafs, successive playoff series literally get pushed around. And it can't happen anymore. And in this playoff, this is Dubas's last chance, if you believe the Maple Leafs and if you read the tea leaves that I think are out there. It's obvious that at least publicly they're saying you don't have a contract. They're sending a clear message that they're challenging the team. Let's be clear about that. they're not challenging Dubas. That's not who they're challenging. They're challenging the team and saying, this is the guy that brought you here. This is the guy that decided how much you earn. This is the guy whose basic job with the Maple Leafs is hanging in the balance, depending on, I'm going to point here just to make a point, depending on you and what you do. I think that's the way that plays out. These people who think it's just he's on under the gun, it isn't him. Yes, he could end up paying the price, but he's not the one under the gun, Aaron.
Yeah, that is, I think, the key point to remember here. Dubas has done everything he can to this point to get the pieces into place. He can't play for the team. You know what I mean? Like, it's not
Yeah.
him that has to be putting in the effort on the ice. It's not Sheldon Keefe that has to be putting the effort in on the ice. It's not Manny Malhotra that has to be putting the effort on the ice. It's the guys that are currently getting paid the most money that have to come
Every
through for
player on the
Dubas at
team,
this point. Yeah.
every player on the team, doesn't matter how much they get paid. They're all there because Dubas brought them in. So they're beholden to him. And they got to realize that if they want to see him around next year, they're going to have to show that they appreciate his faith in them. And Aaron, it's not a question of he can have the people that he wants on the team. He can only have the people on the team that he can afford to have. So there are players there that I think is the problem, and maybe a tiny talking about what you said about I'm going the other direction for the players who don't make that much money. Maybe they don't think they're there because of their ability, because that's all they can, because of what they're getting paid, and maybe that loyalty isn't there the way it should be. But I would hope that it would be, and I would hope that this team finally does something in the playoffs that's a better reflection of what Leaf fans deserve. As much as people love to attack and criticize the Maple Leaf fans, all I can say is they deserve better. And that's why I say I'm a Toronto fan, watching people in Toronto and those that love Toronto and the teams that lie in there and play in there. I support them because they're in Toronto. I support the fans. They're my first concern. The players aren't my concern. The fans are my concern. And that concern says, win a playoff series, for gosh sakes.
I mean, it's an ask that's been around for a long time, and
Too long.
the fact that this seems to be their Sisyphean task, if you will, is getting past the first round. They keep rolling the boulder up the hill, but never quite seem to make it to the top.
And they all say the same thing. We love the fans. We love to play. We want to play for Toronto. They say all this stuff, but they can't put it together. And this year is the year where it's Fisher Cup bait. That's what it sounds like to me. I don't know, Aaron.
No,
Can it
this
be
is one of
expressed
those
any
years.
stronger?
At this point, honestly, Dubas's future literally does rest in the hands of every single player on that team. It's sad but true.
And the reason I'm going down this road is because I'd like to converse with you on the issue. Like I said, they need an abrasive forward that can score. They need an abrasive forward that can play in the top six, so that they can push down one of those top six guys they're using, and keep the top nine guys, keep them in the lower part of the lineup, right? They've got to do something. Dubas has to work some magic. Is he on his own with the decisions that he makes, Aaron, or do you think Shanahan still is the head of the Shanahan plan?
I think at this point here, really, the Shanahan plan is just verbiage. I mean, you can only go so far. Shanahan says, "I've got a 5-year plan." It's year 8 now, or something like that.
Yep.
At this point here, he's outrun it. Like Stalin's 5-year
He's on
plans
borrowed
when it
time
came to Russia. It's really, yeah, it really is. And once, if Dubas is out the door because the Leafs failed to win a playoff round, how far behind him is Shanahan is the question.
Absolutely. And again, we always end up going here, but we must go here. The issue of where they're playing and who they're playing against, and the division that they're in. They do well in the division, but so does the division. I mean, 3 of the top 5 teams, at least that last time I looked, 3 of the top 5 teams in the league reside 1, 2, 3 in the Atlantic Division.
Yeah. And this is, I think, one of the issues that the current playoff format doesn't address as well. You know, you look at the top teams in the league right now. Yeah, they are pretty much in the same division, and they are all in the same conference. You know, by the time you get to the second or third round, the team that you maybe want to see in there, the top team, not there. You know, pretty much guaranteed one of the top teams won't be.
There is a faction within the National Hockey League, the teams that are starting to talk about 1 through 8, not this wild card thing. They're talking 1 through 8. The top 8 teams get in. The top team plays the 8th team. The second team plays the 7th team. The third team plays the 6th team. It might be too little, too late for the Maple Leafs, and this might be something that happens in the near future. And the question is, will the Leafs be able to continue to keep up and be, you know, top 1 or 2 in this division and in this conference, be as competitive? Last year it was Florida. This year Boston has made a lot of noise. The year before that it was Tampa, and then Boston before that, and it continues. You know, it's the same story all over again. So I guess we also have to say, in defense, again, it's in defense of Dubas and the Shanna plan. The problem is they change general managers, Aaron. This general manager the Leafs have right now, and this plan the Leafs have right now, does have a very good team. It's a top 3 or 4 in the league team. I mean, how can you, as much as I want to criticize Kyle Dubas, as much as I want to criticize Brendan Shanahan, as much as I want to criticize the Leaf organization, one has to keep a mind on that. And it isn't sporting. It isn't very sportsmanlike the way the league runs the playoffs. It's not. It's simply bottom line. And like I said, I'm not defending the Maple Leafs. It's the Toronto fans that I'm in support of. It's not fair to the Toronto fans that their team is that good, and then they have to play a team that is much better than the opponent they deserve to play.
No, and the fact of the matter is, they make too much money this way. With having the extra wild card play in, you get Pittsburgh. At this point, it'd be Pittsburgh versus Washington. Who doesn't want to see Ovechkin versus Crosby? I'd sell an arm and a leg to try to beat that game. Edmonton, Minnesota, not
But
so
do they
sold on the
deserve to
West.
have
But
each other as opponents, though? Do they deserve to have they earned the right to have the other as an opponent?
Well, I mean, if you look at the league standings, and you know, I'm certainly trying to pull that up right now, but if you look at the Leaf standings, if
I'll
you're
do it.
going 1 through 8 in the East and 1 through 8 in the West, and you're doing that by conference, then 7 and 8 currently are Pittsburgh and Washington,
Right.
and you know,
The
7
last
and
2
8,
teams.
yeah,
Neither
and
of them
7,
should be playing each other. They should be one of them is going to be at home, and they both should be on the road.
yep, and that's the way that it's unbalanced because they've gone to 6 divisions, and they feel for some odd reason that every division should have a representative. That's how you end up with it. I mean, if they'd simply kept the Patrick, the Smythe, the Norris, you know, and just
Or at
gone in the
least kept the
Adams,
way the playoffs were worked out, or at least
yeah.
if they worked out the playoffs the way they worked out. You know, that's the thing. And yeah, go ahead.
But it's this desire that they have with the way these divisions are set up, that you know it's not straight up 1 through 4 in the East and 1 through 4 in the you know, sorry, 1 through 4 in the Metropolitan, 1 through 4 in the Atlantic, 1 through 4 in the Central, and 1 through 4 in the Pacific. Right? It's the top 3, and then hey, we're going to have these 2 other teams fight it out in a gladiator style death match and make some more playoff money off that so that they can have the right to play, you know, this other team. And it's just like, no, you don't need this. Go back to 1 through 8.
Now the Leafs would still play Tampa
Yes.
under those terms.
Well, actually, let's take a look here. If you look at the standings right now, it would be, yeah, if we did it by conference, 1 through 8, Toronto, Tampa, New Jersey versus New York, Carolina versus Pittsburgh, and Washington versus Boston in the first round. On the other side of the coin, it would be Seattle, Los Angeles, Winnipeg, Edmonton, Vegas, Colorado, and Dallas, Minnesota. I'd
Absolutely.
love to see that. I think that would be an absolutely phenomenal
I
top
just
16.
I just wonder. I mean, is there a reason? Is there a reward for finishing first? We know there's a reward for finishing last.
And even that's not guaranteed anymore. It's only a
No, no, I know
20%
it's
chance
not
of getting it.
guaranteed,
But
but they don't change the odds according to the division you play with.
this is true.
Right? The record's all that matters. The record is the priority. That's the point. And that's the point I'm making, that to be fair to see who drafts the top player, they don't have any formula. They don't have any, overriding principle that changes the fact that the worst team shouldn't get the best chance, that for some reason the third worst team should get the best chance. They don't do that. And that's the same thing for this. It's I think I've beaten that dead horse. I'll let you finish beating it. So as far as I'm concerned, they got to go back to that. And one of the reasons they did it, Aaron, just as a reminder, was because they were trying to keep the games regional, right? They were trying to keep the games to have teams play closer to home. So they stay with it. Here it doesn't show as much as it does in the West. The difference in the West is you could be playing in the Western Division, and if you do 1 through 8, you could end up having LA against Detroit. And that's not a pleasant thing. So preferably, they want to have Detroit against other teams that are closer, like Nashville, that type of thing. So I understand it's about money. The fans don't come first. It's money. It's about saving money. And that's one of the predominant reasons why they did it. It was economically smart. But for competition, not so much.
No, and that was their whole idea, right? Was to build the rivalries, was to build the
Yeah.
regionality into the very format of the playoffs themselves. And trying to force a rivalry like that doesn't work. In the earlier years, Toronto, Ottawa, yeah, that was fantastic. Now, because of the directions the franchises have gone in, whoop, it's sort of moot. There
Well,
isn't that competitive
The Leaf
fire.
fans, they can take this. The Leaf organization that sells their tickets. This is not a sellable. This is not a selling point to buy Leaf tickets. To buy tickets to a team or support a team that doesn't have much of a chance, that has less of a chance than other teams to make it in the playoffs, or to advance in the playoffs, or have the appearance that they can advance in the playoffs. So this Leaf team has to do something now. I'm not making excuses for them, just pointing out a couple of things. And this year, because of teams like Carolina that are being consistently good, the improvement in New Jersey, they've become a top flight team. So the argument that I'm having right now, and I'm taking responsibility for this because I don't want to throw you under the bus, so I'll throw myself under the bus. The divisions are far more equal than today than they were last year or the year before that.
No, they do seem to be more balanced, and that is, I think, a combination of some parity, but also strength of schedule. So,
Absolutely. Let's take a news break. Okay,
sure,
Bank of Canada announces interest rate increase. Who saw that coming? I did.
right? I mean, it's not like anybody didn't expect that at all, but yeah, no, the Bank of Canada has actually bumped the interest rate, and the reason that they've done that is because they're trying to cool off. They're trying to cool off inflation. So the intent there is to try to get people to borrow less and pay down debt, and hopefully get everything under control. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to work, mainly because I'm not an economist, and most of that sort of thing is voodoo wizardry and BS to me. But the Bank of Canada sometimes knows what they're doing, so we'll see how that works.
Navy vessels headed towards Haiti as the violence there gets worse, Aaron.
Yeah, they are going to be actually part of intelligence gathering. This is in part of effort to quell the worsening gang violence in the Caribbean nation. He made the announcement in the Bahamas at the annual meeting of Caribbean leaders, where a key topic this time around has been Haiti's surge in killings, rapes, and kidnappings blamed on gangs, emboldened by the July 2021 assassination of President Jovenel Moise. So Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry also at the meeting was pleading for a full-fledged military intervention to stem the mayhem. But if you send in the military for this sort of thing, where does it stop, and when is the
That's
military
dangerous.
actually able to leave? Correct. So it turns into
It's
an
dangerous.
occupation.
And don't forget, I mean, then you might have the ire of one or both parties aimed at you.
Not to mention the gangs. So that's
Well, that's just it. You become, you know, you become the enemy of both parties. So
exactly.
we'll see. Well, it depends anyway. That's a tough situation. I hope that works out. The Trudeau government was justified in using unprecedented powers of the Emergencies Act. That's the ruling.
Yeah. So according to Commissioner Paul Rouleau, they were justified, but it could have been avoided if not for failures of policing and provincial
Ooh.
governments. In this case, the very high threshold for invocation of the act was met. Um, he says, "I have concluded with reluctance that this is the case." Cabinet was reasonably concerned that the situation it was facing was worsening and at risk of becoming dangerous and unmanageable. Had various police forces and levels of government prepared for and anticipated events of this type and acted differently in response to the situation, the emergency that Canada ultimately faced would likely have been avoided. Unfortunately, it was not. There is a healthy portion of blame that is placed at the feet of the federal government, as expected. But as well, the report also did point out the massive failings of the provincial government in responding to intelligence that they had gathered concerning this. And an important thing to remember here, a lot of what was going on there was the provincial government's responsibility, which our current premier unfortunately did not live up to.
Well,
So,
the RCMP aren't there to fix that problem. It's local
no.
Ontario
Mm-hmm.
controlled police.
Exactly.
Every right, so that's who does that. So I guess you could also say though, order bus, insert said premiers under bus.
Mm. Yep, something like that.
Let's go with ice and snow, make travel woes.
So, for those of you who are awake late enough last night, I'm pretty sure you heard it start to rain. Those of you who woke up in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area realized that there were over 6 hours of freezing rain overnight and into the morning. Um, as it currently stands, the roads are mostly clear in our neighborhood. The missus was out to go do a little bit of shopping and a couple doctor's appointments, and the roads seem clear here. What is it like up by you guys?
Last night I made 3 trips and I drove in the icy rain. I had to clean my windshield every time I went out and back, and I only went for a 5-minute drive. Yeah, so it was icy rain and then fluffy stuff all day today, and about say 3, 4, 5 inches. So yeah, enough snow to concern oneself up here. Let's talk about Niagara Town.
Right. So there have been multiple threats at schools over the past 3 days in the Niagara region. Specifically, we're looking at Fort Erie. People called in bomb threats to John Brant Public School in the Ridgeway area. Now, the Niagara Regional Police posted about the incident just before 11 a.m. on Thursday, saying the school implemented a shelter-in-place procedure. But yeah, these were threats made against elementary schools, which to me absolutely boggles the mind. Um, I'm hoping that they track down the individuals who made these threats, because calling in bomb threats to elementary schools is it
Is
makes me
jail
want to
time
use
too
language
much?
that can't be used on live
Am
television.
I becoming a little bit of a iron fist guy? Is jail time too much for people who do stuff like that?
Look, the way it's making me react is a visceral reaction here. If I were to catch these individuals, or if I knew who they were, there would be no hesitation in me calling the police and diming them out. Because something like this, that garbage, is not anything that ever should be done. There's no justification. There's no excuse. It's not funny. It's not amusing. Just don't. Come on, man.
No, it's just crazy. I think a little bit of jail time would be nice. A little introduction to responsibility and accountability. You know, actions should have consequences.
Most definitely.
those kind of actions, striking fear in people, especially in a time when we see the legitimate concern with that kind of stuff going on, and watch long suffering parents who more and more, are having difficulty letting go of their children and driving away. This is just, and it's, we're not talking about a couple of people. We're talking about every parent, every child becomes aware of what's going on, becomes aware of some of the tragedies that have taken place, and then you throw threats up against them. No, put them away for a little while. I'm not saying for 20 years. I'm saying at the very least put them away long enough for them to realize they can be put away, and have them begin the record. If that's the kind of human being they are, we need to know. One of the biggest things that, man, I feel like I'm on a rant today. One of the biggest things that I truly truly believe is that some of the nasty stuff that people do is because they keep getting away with it. It's one thing I'm beginning to learn in life, is that if you let people do nasty stuff, they're not going to stop doing it because they got away with it. It's become very clear to me, maybe I'm wrong, but in my opinion, they tend to keep going until we stop them. And then, even there's even a definition that people throw out there and go, it's a cry for help. Well, help them. Put them in jail for a weekend, a week. I know it sounds stupid, but what do you think, Aaron? I mean, if you were put in jail for a week, right? It's not the end of your life, but would it make you think?
It would certainly make me think. I mean,
I
with
think it would
regards to
make you
calling
think.
in a fake bomb threat to an elementary school,
It
yeah,
would make you think.
it would give you the message, don't do that again, because that's not a good thing.
Absolutely.
So
That's what we need. I hate to sound so forceful, but we need people who are attacking people to know that they can't do it. That's all I'm trying to say. And I'm not suggesting that it's a be all end all putting them in jail. I'm just saying the threat, the threat of paying a price for doing something that's nasty like that. It has to land. If you understand what I'm saying, it has to land.
mhm,
Well, however that is, please make it land on these people. Make them understand what they're doing is wrong. However you decide to do it. Russia,
exactly.
wow, it's crawling up to an anniversary. Biden's going to Poland in honor uh, of a year of this war. Many people a year ago, when the Russians first rolled over the border, Aaron, and I think you and I would probably be among them, as would probably 99.5% of the people in the world, would have said, well, there goes the Ukraine. Not so.
No, this was something that was supposed to be over in 3 days, according to Putin, and it hasn't gone that way. But there have been a lot of instances where things are happening that are off. The most recent example of this was Marina Yankina, who worked for Russia's Western Military District, was found deceased on Wednesday. She had apparently fallen out of a 16th story window.
Oh
Um,
boy.
yeah, she
That
apparently
happens a lot in Russia, eh?
before she joined the Western Military District, she worked for the Federal Tax Service of Russia. Now, she is not the first. Anton Goroshenko, an advisor to the Minister of Internal Affairs, pointed out on Thursday that this is not exactly something that's new. Russian Interior Ministry Major General Vladimir Makarov was found dead this week in an apparent suicide. Um, Putin critic and sausage tycoon Pavel Antov died after falling out of a window in a hotel in December. And last September, Ravil Maganov also died after falling from a hospital window. Um, these sorts of things are indications of perhaps cracks in the solidarity and a questioning of the current order in Russia. It does appear that his Putin's grip may be slackening.
Or or he's trying to grip a little harder. Um, these window things have happened a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to joke about it, but it's so ludicrous, Aaron. It's I mean, it's beyond the pale. It's something I can't imagine. I can't imagine a people in a country who hear this kind of stuff, and I assume they hear it. As much as news can be controlled, I don't think they can turn it off completely, Aaron. I don't think. So,
Yeah.
but then I heard another thing about Putin and him sending all his young men to death, to a war in another country. And 1 million people have left Russia since the war started. I heard a point that frightened me even more. I don't know if this makes any sense to you. A reporter noted that the young men who die and the news of their death arrives at their homes, whether it's their parents or a spouse or someone else, you would think, I would think, I won't put you in there, I would think that they would be angry with Putin, but apparently the opposite is true. They become even more supportive of Putin and his action and are demanding that they fight harder. But when you think about it, it makes kind of sense because the parents don't want to think that their child was lost for nothing. So
No,
victory has to happen now that their son died, right? I guess that's the mentality, and that's the horrible thing about hate and war and murder. Doesn't make sense.
no, and it's an ever-growing rot too. Once you start down that path, how many do you have to kill to ensure that you retain power? How many people have to die to prop up your war? It's I hate to say it's a slippery slope, but it's a slippery slope. These things will start to pick up, and it's not going to get better. It will only get worse.
The word is 200,000 more soldiers are coming into the war. Two or 400,000 soldiers apparently, and the next offensive is being planned. But then you hear contradicting stories that the Ukrainian army has beaten Putin to the point of, where he's losing the war. And we're also hearing economically that 1,000 companies have left Russia, and they're happy they left Russia because their fortunes have hit an upturn after leaving Russia. So I don't know whether this is Western, gobbledygook to try to make things sound good for here in the West. Don't know if they're just stories, but if true, there's got to be a point where the people in Russia realize that, hey, maybe this guy isn't the right guy to lead us, and they do something about it.
No, I mean it is something that makes you think, and it stands now with the Russian people. Theirs
Well,
theirs
I'm
is the
not a
choice
fan of
now.
war.
No,
Not a fan of war, not a fan of murder, not a fan of killing, not a fan. Let's go to hockey and talk about more pleasant subjects. The Habs are going to be playing Toronto. There's a subject Aaron likes.
yes, most definitely.
Is
One of the
revenge on
oldest
the menu?
one of the oldest rivalries in the sport, I was going to say. But yeah, we're looking at the Habs versus the Leafs coming up this weekend on Saturday, and this is one of those games where it'd be nice if Toronto could win it, because this is a team that they should definitely be beating. Montreal is currently 8th in the Atlantic. Toronto is in 2nd. This is one of those cases where, and we've referred to them as trap games before, Frank, and that will continue to hold true until the Leafs prove otherwise. Beating Chicago 5-2 this past weekend was nice. Don't
It
get me wrong.
doesn't help, Aaron, because
No,
they've been 50-50, pretty much 50-50 against teams this bad. So they've had the win and they had the loss before that. Then they had the win before that. There's a trend here, Aaron, with the teams at the bottom. Montreal's due for a victory only because of Toronto. Can they break that string? Can they win 2 in a row against 2 lowly opponents? That's the big question today.
well, and following that, they win against the third lowly opponent, because not only are they playing on Saturday in Toronto, they are playing on Sunday afternoon in Chicago. So you're looking at you're looking at a back-to-back with travel for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So
And about 4 to 6 hours less time to prepare for the game. Like it's not
yeah,
just a back to back 2 7 o'clock games. It's a 7, and then what time
a
is did
six.
you say
It's a
what
7 and
time?
a 6 o'clock game.
Yeah, which
So
is actually 7 and 7 because I think they're about an hour.
yeah, they're an hour
So
behind. So
it's about
it
the
works
same. So
out.
forget what you said.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
it's
forget
still
what
a
I said.
it's still a 21-hour turnaround time as opposed
Yeah.
to a full 24 to 48 hours for the Maple Leafs. So that makes things a little bit difficult, and it does take its toll. Now, the good news is there are a few players that used to play from the Marlies up there, so they know what it's like to play 3 games in a weekend. So this sort of thing is old hat for them. But we'll have to see how it turns
Who do you
out.
think will see? Who do you think will see some ice time?
Realistically speaking, here, I'm hoping Timmins will draw in again. I know that Hall and him have been trading spots back and forth on the roster. I'm hoping that Keefe can find a way to get them both in at the same time for an extended period of time, but that's not always what happens. I'm really kind of puzzled, to be honest with you, Frank, as to why um, Timmins isn't drawing in more over Hall. And now
Ooh,
I understand that
ooh.
Justin Hall is good at 5-on-5 and good on the PK. I get that, but at the same time, um, you know, Timmins isn't going to develop unless he actually gets that. So
Ooh, I think it has a lot to do. Timmons isn't in because he should be in because of the reason he isn't in. He should be in because he offers some offense from the back line, something nobody on the Leaf team does right now.
yeah,
Insert Morgan Riley and his play of recent. Like he should be the guy that should be offensive. He should be he did score 20 goals a couple of years ago, 20, 22, something like that. So, he has not found the net this year, and the Leafs don't really have anybody in the back end that can threaten, that'll open up the game down low. If you're not worried about a shot from the point, you can fold up a little more. That. We both know that. So there has to be a threat on the blue line, and they just don't have one. Sandin looked like the guy who could do it. He was able to early in his stint with the Leafs, able to get pucks to the net. Essentially, we're not talking about a 200-mile-an-hour puck. We're talking about pucks that don't hit legs, that don't hit sticks, that make it to the goaltender, where you have a guy, the captain, who can make a lot of hay out of pucks that drop in front of a goaltender. Never mind Marner, never mind Austin Matthews. You know, uh, it's what they need. They need a shot from the point, and Timmins has a better shot than any of the Leafs that are there right now, and that's why I
no,
think he should be there.
it's very true. At practice this morning, however, Timmins and Ben were the odd man out, while Hall was drawing in for the practice this morning. However, that doesn't necessarily indicate where it's going to be tomorrow night. But
He'll be in.
the scuttlebutt is that Hall is going to be in and Timmins is going to be sitting. So
Hall will be in.
yeah,
Hall will be in. He. I think it's kind of sad, really, that this guy gets beaten on more than he should. He takes more responsibility for the way he plays, as far as the fans are concerned. Those Toronto people I was talking about,
yeah,
that are very negative about him, and it has a lot to do with the fact that he's there playing with best players on the other team. So, if you're doing that, if you're one of the shutdown defensemen, uh, by definition, you're playing against the better players on the other team. And you can't tell me you're not going to look as good as you would if you're playing against the second, third, or fourth line. And I think he takes a lot of heat. There was some talk that he was sitting out. What happens at this time of year when you sit a player out? There's concern that maybe, he might be on the way out, but that's not the case. If he stays out one more game, it might be the case, in my opinion.
and the way I see it on the right hand side there, you've got Hall and Timmins fighting for the three spot on the right hand side, and that's going to be I think Keefe is going to continue to run them back on a rotating basis to keep both of them fresh. So
Yeah, exactly. And it's a good problem to have.
yeah,
Have two guys that you'd like to have in the lineup, but you have to pick between one of them. That's a good problem if you're the coach.
most definitely, it's a problem I definitely love to have.
Right. So, that's not it's not a problem. So they play the Blackhawks as well. The Blackhawks did not look good. Kane did not look good. We saw the player that you mentioned the Leafs are looking at. How fired up is this Blackhawk team going to be? And in a great stadium that Chicago is, back in the days when before they moved into the new arena, it was notorious for being a tough place to play because it was a tight stadium. The Chicago Stadium was a real nightmare for visiting teams. It's not as bad now, but I think that has more to do with the way the team is playing.
With the issues that they've been having dealing with PR nightmares over the past couple of years, with the whole Kyle Beach situation and what's going on with the team now, and the fact that they're trying to make do with aging veterans who are paid too much to be moved and on the downward side of their careers, including one who is potentially nursing a hip injury. Things get more and more difficult for them the longer they go into the season. So as it currently stands, yeah, I'd hope they'd be fired up. You would expect at least that out of a professional sports franchise, playing a team that beat them, 4 or 5 nights before as soundly as the Maple Leafs did. Now, the Leafs looked okay in beating the Chicago Blackhawks. They didn't look fantastic. There wasn't anything to really write home about. It was a solid, consistent, low event win.
The
It
kind
was
of win they have
basically
to have against teams like that.
exactly, it's the kind of where nothing flashy gets done. You put your head down, you put your shoulder into it, and you just grind away at it until you get the result that you want. Now, having
Neat.
Nylander score as quickly as he did, and having Lafferty respond as quickly as he did, basically negated the Nylander goal in the first 9 seconds. But that puts you back at square one again, and you just got to keep grinding away at it until it gets done.
Let's talk about two players. We'll talk about Nylander in a bit, but let's talk about a certain player that draws a lot of attention, and some would suggest non-calls from the officials. Michael Bunting. Is he a problem? I know you want me to ask you that question, so I hope you have the answer prepared. Is he a problem for the Maple Leafs, Aaron? I just thought I'd lay that out on you.
He put it this way: I love the physical way that he plays. However, watching him lose his mind at the referees every time something doesn't go his way is going to hurt the Maple Leafs, and it already has. In the same way that Nazem Kadri used to draw a lot of penalties, he used to think that he was a penalty drawing machine. In the same way that Bunting used to do that, it now no longer happens. It's actually swung in exactly the opposite direction. Um, to get the pendulum back on his side right now, what Michael Bunting needs to do is just play the game. Yep. Just
Be quiet.
zip it for 5 to 6 games. Look
Be
who the referees are. If you've chirped those referees before, shut your pie hole. Don't say a thing. As a guy from Scarborough myself, I know, I understand, I get it. But you got to zip your lip. And if he doesn't, I hope that Keefe staples his ass to the bench and does not let him see a second of ice time if he continues to flap his gums. And it's wearing thin with his teammates, too. You can see it on the bench. Whenever he goes off on a referee, all the other guys on the bench around him are just like, oh, it's Michael Bunting again. I'm just going to keep watching the play. It's he has the potential to help the Leafs a lot, as is the talk about him being a candidate for the Calder at 26 years old. The potential is there. There's just other things around his game that he's got to change if he wants to be successful.
Well, I think we're seeing why he wasn't having a lot of success, with Arizona. He wasn't really getting the kind of ice time, and the Leafs kind of picked him up, and he seemed to have blossomed immediately. But along with that blossoming came this ability to draw penalties and not try to be like the thief who got away. He was a little too cocky and a little too insistent. And I think this is a mental issue that he has to deal with, and that the team needs him to. Unfortunately, in this kind of situation, Aaron, as you know, there's a saying that used to have is that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And you can always pull the reins on a horse, right? You want them to go as fast as they can go, and then pull the reins. It's easier to pull the reins back than to drag a horse forward. Here's the problem. If the reins don't work, that's a problem too. So, they can go full bore, full trot, but there has to be an intelligence attached to it. There has to be a bit of, to use what my Jewish friends would call schmoozing, and there's not enough schmoozing on his part. He's too angry about the way the game is being called, calls attentions to the officials, and the officials are human. I mean, and we know one referee got basically kicked out because he kind of admitted and was heard to admit, I'll get that guy. And he did. And then he was gone. So, if you're hoping for that, that's not the chance of that. It has to be a pretty grotesque move by an official. You've heard what's going on. We know some stuff about some officials. We question some of the officials that are officiating at games that Leafs play for reasons that have been explained. We don't need to go into them now, but the point is you got to play the game, and not just the one on the ice, but the one up there.
Now, everybody laughs at the idea that it's mind games when it comes to this sort of thing. But, part of Brad Marchand's success around the league is he isn't a jerk to the referees.
Or
As
he
funny
goes
as it
too
sounds.
far and then backs off for a game or two.
Yep.
And he does go back to the well, but I mean, he's playing for a team that he can do it. If he was a Leaf, he would have been traded by the Leafs a long time ago because he would have been punished something fierce, like Kadri. So yeah, I agree with you that Michael Bunting needs to be a little smarter. And it's not to suggest that he isn't intelligent. This is a different vein. We're not talking about him being not smart. We're talking about him not being politically smart enough,
Yes.
making the calculations on understanding where he stands every moment during the game. You can do something at a certain time, but then you can't at another time. And he has to distinguish when he can and when he can't be Michael Bunting. Sometimes he has to be invisible.
I think what he has to realize, too, is there are certain things that referees look for when it comes to calling penalties. One of them
making him look bad.
is that. See this? Yeah, you do too much of this, and the referee will think that they're trying to stare at something on the ceiling or read one of the championship banners. Stop it, Michael. That doesn't work anymore.
And when you really do get hit and you're bleeding, they're not looking.
No, and that's when I realized the ride was over. As soon as he went to one of the referees and they didn't call anything, even though they saw the blood on his fingers, that's when I knew. It
was on his face, it was running down his nose.
Yep.
Yeah. But they probably considered incidental contact. Anyway, let's talk about the United States women's national team.
So there was something called the She Believes series that's beginning between Canada and the States and a couple other teams in the region. The U.S. women's national team played the She Believes Cup opener on Thursday while sporting white and purple tapes around their wrists. This is a dual statement of solidarity with their Canadian opponents and with transgender people in general. The purple tape was worn in the name of gender equality, and the white was worn as a symbol of protest. Specifically here, they're talking about the fact that Soccer Canada as well is cutting benefits for the Canadian women's team and cutting funding. But also there's the lack of support for the LGBTQ community, as well as the denial of gender-affirming resources to trans kids and a threat to their parents and guardians with claims of child abuse where the game was being played in Florida. So there's a double meaning behind the protest there. But we're hoping that Soccer Canada will see their way around it to compensate the women properly, and that they pull their heads out of their butts in enough time to properly fund and support the right groups.
We're running out of time. The NHLPA names Labor Secretary Marty Walsh the executive director of the NHLPA.
So Marty Walsh has been named the new head of the NHLPA. He's the former U.S. Secretary of Labor. So this is basically they're putting an experienced union leader and former Boston mayor in charge at a time of growing revenues in hockey. And this is with collective bargaining coming up in the next few years. So they're trying to get a union guy in there to help them out with that. It's a savvy move, I think, as far as that's concerned.
And a Boston guy.
And a Boston guy. So, it doesn't hurt.
In closing, Aaron, a lot of interesting news. It was a fun week. Please enjoy your weekend.
Oh, I fully intend to, Frank. We'll be taking in the Toronto Rock game on the Saturday there, and then be taking in the Marlies game at Scotiabank Arena on Family Day. So full slate.
Yep. And everybody, wish you a happy Family Day weekend. It is Family Day on Monday, so enjoy the long weekend.
You too, Frank.
All right. He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live's Leaf Talk, Aaron, Fridays, along with Candid Frank Live, airing Mondays and Wednesdays at 6 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. If you want to check out the Candid Frank Live shows, you can do that at Candid Frank Stanisci YouTube. So please do that. Watch them all, hear them all, read them all, download them all, and live life like there's no tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Ciao for now.